So before this video begins, I just kind of wanted to give a quick thank you to all of you. Throughout the video, I'm going to be talking mostly about the drawings that I made, so I just wanted to take a minute to give you a big sincere thank you for all of the support that you guys have given me. I didn't think that I'd really get this far, and it really means a lot that I'm able to make content that you all enjoy. I'm definitely not the most interesting or talented or funny person on this platform. I'm definitely not the biggest person on this platform, but I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy to have all the support of you guys. I know that my videos mean different things to different people, and whether it's being a place to just be yourself, being a place to inspire you with art, or just another random YouTube video to watch for that day, I'm really grateful to be whatever I am to you. So thank you so much, and I hope that you enjoyed the video. Hello, and welcome back to my channel. We did it. We out here. We made it to 50k. I know that this video is coming out a little bit late. As of recording this, I have a little bit over 51,000, but thank you so much for all of the support, and of course it's that time for me to give back to you guys. I did sort of a milestone video at the beginning of this year, and it feels kind of suiting to make one towards the end of the year. I didn't expect that I would have to make one at the end of the year, because I didn't expect it to really get here, especially as quickly as I did, but here we are. And when I asked you guys over on Instagram what kind of sort of like celebration video you wanted me to make, a lot of you guys wanted me to draw your OCs, so here we are. I only drew 5 of them because there's way too many of you guys for me to be able to draw more of them, and I just don't have enough time, and I'm only one person, but I would love to be able to draw all of them if I had the opportunity to. All of these characters were randomly chosen, so don't feel bad if yours didn't get picked, because I had no control over which ones I picked because they were random. But I'm really happy with how all of these drawings came out, so with that, let's get into it. The first one that I made I thought was a really good start to making this video because the design was like fairly simple compared to the others. Since the design was more simple, it gave me a lot more time and freedom to kind of experiment with what kind of style that I wanted, so it was just a really lucky pick. When I say style, a lot of you guys watching this might not understand what I mean because it probably just looks like the same style as all of my other art, let's be real. To me, since I'm the one making it, I'm able to see differences, and it's not necessarily like my art style that's different, but more of just like aesthetic choices that I made that are more consistent throughout all of these drawings. I was actually kind of nervous to film this video because whenever I draw somebody else's character, it makes me a little uneasy because I can never tell if there's a part of the character that's a part of the character or a part of the artist's art style. And so if I leave something out, they might be like, that's an important part of my character, and then I'll feel really bad. But I think I did a pretty good job with this one. Maybe that's just me overthinking it, but let me know if you guys have that, because it definitely eats at my soul every single time I draw someone's character. I think that the hardest part of this one was just coming up with the pose, because for most of the other ones, I was able to take a lot of inspiration from whatever pose that the character was in and then just kind of make it my own. But for this one, the character was just like standing there, which is amazing for like referencing the character. But it means I have to think a little bit harder, and I don't like thinking. So that was a little bit frustrating. In the end, I really like the pose that I came up with though. One of the choices that I made for all of these drawings is to not give any of them black line art. I always change the color of the line art in certain places anyway, so I guess it doesn't really matter. But for those of you familiar with my art style, I usually leave the outside edges black, or in this case, a dark color, and so I thought that it would just be a nice touch to this. Something that I've been doing a lot lately, so it wasn't that difficult of a choice to make, but it's there. So this is also when I started to realize that colors would be a little bit of an issue. So with digital art, I can just like eyedrop the color and have like the exact color match. But for traditional art, which most of you are traditional artists, it's a little bit more difficult because you have to keep in mind the lighting of the picture. And so for this one, like I could tell by looking at it that there was a very warm light in the room when the artist took the picture. And so I had to keep that in mind. I had to cool down the colors just a little bit. I'm pretty sure there's actually only one digital piece in this one that you guys made. So the rest of them are traditional, so I'm sorry if the colors aren't exact. But I tried my best. I knew I wanted to do these digitally just because I felt like it'd be easier. This picture was pretty easy to kind of figure out the colors for though, because the color palette is fairly monochromatic, and so it was really easy for me to be able to do that, and it kind of gave me an idea of how to transfer those colors, and so the other ones are pretty easy. Again, this was just a very lucky pick because it was a nice, easy one to start off with. I always like to shade with different colors, and so for this one I decided to shade with the purple. I was going to shade with a red, but because all of the other colors, or at least most of the other colors, were red or warm, it just seemed like too much red. So instead I shaded with a purple, like more of like a warm purple. So then that way it's like, it's different, but it still suits the color scheme. I also always do a color overlay at the end of all of my illustrations. I just like the way that it looks. There's no other real reason why I do it. It's just an aesthetic thing. How many times have I said aesthetic in this video, dear lord? I was a little reluctant to do it blue at first, but I figured with the purple shading it would be okay. And it did turn out okay. I believe I also took like the hue switchy barry thing and I like played around with different shades, and I just think that the blue one looked the best. So I feel like it was a nice contrast to all of the red, but because of the purple shading it was still able to like tie the drawing in. And a lot of my illustrations lately have also been making what I call graphic backgrounds. I don't know if that's like an official term or a term that other people use, but it's like not really a background, but it's more of just like colors and shapes that make a background. And again, the one that I did for this illustration was fairly simple, but I thought that it suited it because the character itself was very simple. I started off by making it like a blue color because of the overlay, but it just seemed like it stood out too much to me, and so I ended up making it like a red, but then that also stood out too much. Don't remember which order I did this in, but those are two things that I did. But I actually ended up playing with like blending modes and opacities to like blend those two together, and it made more of like a brown color, and I think that that tied in with the color scheme a lot better. And yeah, I'm really happy with how this one turned out, and that's probably going to be a common theme because I'm really proud of how all these drawings turned out. Moving on to the next character, I was kind of nervous about drawing this one because it made me kind of uneasy because like I was worried that you wouldn't really see a lot of the character, and also I didn't get a back view of this character. But when I came up with that pose idea, I just fell in love with it and I just couldn't resist. I also don't get a lot of opportunities to draw those kind of poses, but this character has wings, and so it provided a wonderful opportunity, and so I took it. I also, like I said earlier, took inspiration from the original picture. I liked the flowy in the air thing. I could have just said flying, I'm stupid. Anyways, so I took inspiration from that, and you'll also see a little bit later when I get to the background element, I included those like glowy orby things. I had a lot of fun with this one because it was very different from all of the other ones that I drew. All of the other ones are like sitting or crouching in some way, but for this one I did more of like a, not really standing up pose, but like a flying pose, and so the body is like elongated. But for this one I think I was really able to get away with it because I have the wings that are able to take up that extra space, because that was a really big thing. I wanted to make use of the space because I feel like earlier in my art career I never really, even like not even too long ago, I feel like I never really took advantage of all of the space that I would have on my paper or my digital canvas, and so I really wanted to be able to do that, and I think that with all of these I did a good job with that. I really struggled drawing the shoes in this one because I'm pretty bad at drawing high heels, especially from this sort of angle. Probably should have used a reference, but also it's one of those things where this is kind of a specific pose, and a lot of high heel references are just of like a view of the shoe, not from like creative angles. And I don't own any high heels to reference myself, so I had to kind of make do. I think that it turned out okay though, and I'm really happy that I took the extra time to try and make it look okay. I think this one took me the longest to draw because of the wings. Wings are a pretty detailed thing, at least the way I draw them. I like to draw as many individual feathers as possible because I am insane apparently, and so that definitely took up a good chunk of time, but again, I'm happy that I took the extra time to really try and make it look nice because, again, I'm really happy with the way that this one turned out. So on the face, this is a perfect example of what I was saying earlier, of not knowing if it's part of the character or the art style. So I couldn't tell if the things underneath the character's eyes were how the artist draws eyelashes or some sort of like face pattern. The way that I drew them in my drawing, you can kind of interpret it as either, but I definitely drew it with like the mindset that it was like a pattern on the face. Either way, I think that it really looks nice, and I felt like the character wouldn't quite look the same if I didn't add that, so that was a detail that I was sure to add in. For the most part, the color scheme for this character is just black and white, and so to add more visual interest, I was sure to add a couple of different shades. There wasn't too many, I think there's like 3 different shades, but I definitely didn't want to make it all the same shade. The original artist also added multiple shades of gray/black, whatever you want to call it, but I just decided to add one more just because that's how I like to do things. I also kept them all towards the cooler side because there was that like purple streak, and I also knew that I wanted to add like blues in the background, and so I was just sure to keep everything more like on the cool side when it came to the color palette. Like I said, the big reason that this took a long time to make is because of the wings, and so as soon as I was finished with the liner, a lot of the rest of the drawing, I was able to just breeze through it because I didn't have to worry about getting all those little details in. And then once this drawing was finished, I decided to add the glowy orbs and also make the eyes glow, because in the original it looked like there was like a faint glow on the eyes, and I thought that that was really cool. And also the glowy orbs that the original one had was a nice way to kind of tie in the glowy eyes, and so I knew that that was something that I really wanted to keep in this drawing. And then I also just added like dark blues and different shades of that, kind of to make it look like it was nighttime, but also not really. These backgrounds are somewhat abstract, like for a lot of them you can kind of tell what I was going for, but it's more of just like basic shapes to create an idea of what's happening instead of just straight up drawing it. And yeah, with that, this second drawing is finished. When this third drawing got picked, I immediately got excited. Not only did I think that the pose is really interesting and I could pull some cool inspiration from that, but also I really like the color scheme. And I really like this color scheme in general. Like whenever I see it, I think that it's really nice, but it's not a color scheme that I personally use often. So this was just a really good opportunity to actually be able to use that. I think my favorite part is the pose though, because between the actual pose itself and the facial expression, I feel like there's a lot of personality behind it. One mistake that I made with this drawing is the sandals. In the original, there may or may not have been sandals. It looked like there might have been one sandal. I couldn't really tell, but I drew sandals. So if this character doesn't actually have sandals, I'm sorry, but I like them. So they're there. There's this sort of like vine detail on one of the legs, and I wish I was able to show that off a little bit more, but the moment I thought of the pose, I was like, no, I'm doing that. And so that ended up not being like super prominent. I did end up incorporating that like design element into the background though, so it's not completely gone, but I do wish I had changed the pose up a little bit to show that off a little bit more. I also couldn't tell if that was like a tattoo sort of thing, or if it was like an actual vine-like object wrapped around her leg. I opted to go the tattoo route, but it could be the other one, so I'm sorry if that's wrong too. I had a really hard time drawing the hands in this picture, said every artist ever, but like in this drawing there's a lot of foreshortening with the arms and even a little bit with the legs, but I mostly struggled with the hands. I really like the hand that's farther away. I think that that one turned out nice, but I feel like I could have spent a little bit more time on the hand that's more prominent and up front. I just think that the perspective on that one's a little bit off, and I wish I was able to work on that a little bit more. Again, there's a little bit of perspective with the legs, but that was definitely much easier than the hands. The only real issues I had with the legs was the one that's more in front than the other one, I guess you could say, the one that's supposed to be like sticking out a little bit. I don't think the perspective is entirely right, but I do think that it's a lot better than the hand. And even though there may or may not be sandals in the original picture, I do really like the sandals in this one because they're just like slightly falling off the feet, and I think that that helps convey like motion in the drawing, which is definitely what I was going for, and it's a small detail, but I'm really happy about that. The coloring part, again, was very easy. I feel like I didn't really have an easier time coloring regardless, but for this one too, it was also easier. The color scheme was pretty similar. The skin was a brown, the hair was a brown, the eyes were a brown, and then there was yellow and green, which go really nice together. And then the greens, I also made more of like a yellowy green, so then that way it's like they're still green, but they tie in with the yellow more. Honestly, the most difficult part about the coloring was the shading, because I couldn't decide on the color to shade with. I started shading with blue for whatever reason. That was a decision that was made, but also a decision that was quickly changed because it was a bad decision. I ended up going for more of this like orangey shading, which I definitely think helps the drawing a little bit more. Before I do shading and highlights, I quickly airbrush shading and highlights, I guess. I don't know, it's very quick and it's like not defined at all, but I think that it helps make the shading and the highlights look more complex than they actually are. And so the airbrush shading that I did for this one, I think I ended up keeping it blue, which looks fine, but then when I started actually shading it like more intricately with the blue, it looked strange, and so I changed that to the orange. But I think that keeping that like airbrushed blue gives a little bit more depth to the drawing. I normally keep those colors the same, but I think that that's something that I should play around with a little bit more because I really like the effect that it had. I also kept the color overlay like a blue. I played around with different ones, but I liked the blue the best. I don't know why it looked weird in the shading, but fine in the overlay. It's a mystery, but I kept that blue, and then after that it was just a matter of adding in the background elements, which went by fairly quickly. I added a little bit of a gradient on the vines just to give them a little bit more depth, and then with that, the third drawing is finished. I sound like a broken record, but I like the way that they came out. I should probably just stop saying that because you guys get the point, but I can't help it. I had a lot of fun making this video. Similar to the last one, the moment that I picked this one and I looked at it, I got really excited, and I think that this one ended up being my favorite out of all of them. I'm just in love with the way that it turned out. The first thing I noticed was the two-toned hair, and that's what made me fall in love with it, because I love blue and orange. They're like my favorite like complementary colors. Is that what they're called? I'm an artist, I should probably know this. I really like that color combination, and the fact that that was such a prominent feature in this design just made me really excited to just start drawing it. And on top of that, the other colors that aren't blue and orange are just overall like really bright and colorful, which also really excited me because I love really bright and colorful stuff. I don't remember if I had a hard time picking a pose or not, but I mean, it wasn't the easiest thing, I guess. I don't know. In the end, I still am not quite sure what this pose is supposed to be, but it looked cute, and I thought that it suited the character's appearance, and so I did it. I said that this one is my favorite, and that's because just overall I think that I did a good job with it. And now, you all know, I'm not one to toot my own horn, but I'm really happy with how this one turned out, and I think overall I did a really good job with it. I love the pose, I love the colors, I love the background element, it's all wonderful. And I guess I have the original artist to thank for all of these, because it's their characters, and so I was just going based off of what they made, so thanks guys. The reference picture that the artist provided wasn't the best, and I'm pretty sure, like, in the caption, the artist said that they took a picture with their laptop, and we all know laptop cameras aren't the best, but they did provide 2 reference pictures, one of them, like, a more up-close picture of, like, the, like, upper torso and the head and stuff, and that was definitely very helpful, because with that I was able to figure out all of the other details. The clothes that I made is kind of up my alley as far as like what I normally draw. I really like drawing femininity, and this is a pretty feminine character, so a combination of like the style of the clothing and the colors, this is definitely really in my comfort zone when I was drawing it. I also really like the way the clothes turned out, not only because like I was comfortable drawing it, but also just like visually, like I think it did a good job with it. I think it's a combination of like the wrinkles in the clothing and the shading that I did. I don't know, there's just something about it that I just absolutely fell in love with, especially those shorts. I had a lot of fun drawing those shorts. I also had a lot of fun drawing the hairstyle. The hairstyle isn't something that I would normally draw by myself, but I'm really happy that I was able to do this because it was a lot of fun. The two-toned hair kind of reminded me of Hayley Williams because I love Paramore, so maybe that's just me, but that was one of the reasons that I really liked it. So a combination of that and the colors and also just the hair bow on the head, I thought that it was really fun, and I was so happy that I was able to draw this one. I didn't want the orange and the blue in the hair to be the same orange and blue that are in the clothing, and so I ended up making the orange and the blue in the clothing pretty much the same, but then I made the hair like a little bit brighter, or I should say make the clothes a little bit darker. I didn't want them to be exactly the same, so I changed them up just a tiny bit. And also the pink, I made more of like a purple pink. On the shorts, I think I went straight up purple, but for the sweater, I made it like pale and lean a little bit more towards the purple side because I just thought that it meshed nicer with the color palette because of the blue. That definitely took a little bit of playing around with, but I think that I ended up with the right shade of pink. I don't use pink a whole lot, so at least I don't think I do. I say that now, but watch someone call me out in the comments. I also shaded with like a pinkish purple because overall there are more warm colors in this drawing, but there's also that blue, and so I went to like purple, but also pink, whatever that color is. So that, because purple itself is a cool color, but I made it just a little bit more warm, and I think that that tied everything in together nicely. As soon as this drawing got picked and I looked at the character, I just knew what kind of background that I wanted to have. Like, when I decided I was going to do these graphic backgrounds, this popped into my head for this character, and I just couldn't help but draw it. Like I was saying earlier, it's more of like abstract shapes, but I feel like for this one, there's a little bit more of a clear image as to what's going on. It looks kind of like there's a canopy, is that what they're called? The things that go over your bed? And then like a bed or a beanbag chair with like a pinstripe wall. And again, it's kind of abstract and there's no definite this is what it is, but I think that it turned out really nice and I think that suits the character. And again, blue and orange. I actually wasn't originally planning on doing the pinstripes. I had this weird spotlight thing, but I didn't like how it looked, and then as soon as I put in the pinstripes, I can't believe I didn't think of it sooner because it looks fantastic, in my opinion at least. And lastly, we have this guy. So this drawing kind of reminded me of the first one a little bit. Like, the characters are definitely different and I can tell the difference between the two, but there's curly hair and red, so I feel like it came full circle. This one was probably the hardest in terms of posing. I don't know why. All of them are like kind of crouching or sitting in a way, except for the one with the wings, and I wanted to keep that consistent, but like, unlike the one with the wings, this character didn't really have anything to like fill up that extra space, so I wasn't really sure what to do. This was actually the only pose idea that I had. Normally I'll come up with a couple of different ideas and thumbnail them out before I start filming, but this was all I got, and I like it, but it definitely took a lot of brainstorming. I didn't include the sword, which I kind of wish that I did, but I think that I made good use of the staff, and yeah, I like the way that this pose turned out. I don't know what just happened right there. I like forgot to speak. I also felt really comfortable when I was making this one, because as most of you know, I am in the process of making a webcomic. Like, I never shut up about it, but then like nothing is out and it's probably annoying, but I keep mentioning it. But in that story there's a couple different royal characters, and so I was very comfortable like drawing another prince character because I do it quite often. But it was also refreshing to see someone else's take on a prince character because I feel like there's a very clear aesthetic with artists and the way that they draw certain characters or certain articles of clothing, and so it was really fun to see how other artists do that same thing. I did lose a little bit of the footage in the line art. So my computer glitched out. Y'all know my laptop's a piece of poop, but I tried my best. Although maybe it was for the best because you missed me struggling drawing the eye, which is weird because eyes are like the easiest part of the drawing for me normally, so I don't know why that was giving me such a hard time. Oh yeah, I just continued on with the line art after that little mishap, and I'm super happy with the way that that turned out. I think that the line art is probably my favorite part about this drawing. I don't know, there's just something about it. It seems very, very nice to me. I have been adding like this sort of hatching thing. It's not cross-hatching because there's only one direction in each hatching area. That probably didn't make any sense. It's not cross-hatching, but I think it's just called hatching when it's like this. And it just adds a lot more depth, I think, to my line art, and I think that the line art in this drawing can definitely show that. One thing that kind of bothers me about this drawing is that the foot in the front is kind of positioned in a slightly odd way. Like, I think it's definitely fine, and I'm not sure if you guys even noticed it until I pointed it out. I think that it looks fine, like it's passable, but it's definitely not at the angle that it should be, but I didn't really notice that until after I had finished the drawing, so I couldn't really go back and change it, which is a little frustrating, but in the end, again, I think it looks alright. This one probably took me the shortest amount of time to make, because at this point I was very familiar with how I wanted these drawings to go, and like what sort of choices I'd have to make, so I was able to just adjust early on. And then also the character design was very simple in terms of like color scheme and design, and so I was able to just work really quickly on this, and it was a good way to end it because I was feeling a little bit burnt out at this point, I think. So yeah, after shading and doing the color overlay and all that other stuff, I went to add the background elements, and for this one, there was just something about it that I couldn't really like do well. Like, I had an image in my head of what I wanted, and then when I went to go put it on paper, it just wasn't really coming out quite right, which I think is very common for artists. Like, it's definitely an issue that I come across quite a lot, but I don't know, there's something about this one that just wasn't looking quite right. Eventually I got it to look how I wanted it to, but it took a lot of playing with like color values and composition. I thought that like the, what are these, Roman pillars? Just these things. I thought that they suited the character quite nice, and so I just added a couple of those. And with that, the final illustration is finished. Thank you so much to everyone who has participated in this fun little event. Like I said earlier, if I could draw more, I definitely would. After I filmed drawing all of these, I looked in the hashtag, and you guys just have a lot of fun characters, you have a lot of creative ideas, and you're all just so talented, and so I hope that, like, you keep doing that because I'm proud of all of you, and I hope that you guys all enjoyed this video. I really like the drawings that I made in it, so let me know what you think about them, and let me know which one is your favorite. And also feel free to comment down what you want future milestone videos to be like, because I feel like the next big milestone is 100,000, which is just a number my brain cannot even comprehend. But if we wanted it to go like another halfway point, we could go to like 75,000, which is also a long time away. and I'm not expecting to hit that anytime soon, but feel free to comment down below what kind of celebration video you guys want me to do and when I should do it, because I love giving back to you guys. You guys give so much support to me and so much love to me, and I just love to be able to do the same thing for you. I'm rambling on. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and if you are not subscribed, please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I love sharing my art with you. I do a lot of stuff like this that you saw in the video, usually with my own characters, also occasionally fan art, just a bunch of fun arty stuff over here, so if you're new here, that would be really awesome if you could stick around. I'll also leave my social media on screen now and in the description box below for you to follow. I'm most active on Instagram, and that is usually where I host events like this. And there is a video on screen now and in the iCard for you to check out if you want. Again, I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching and supporting me, and I'll hopefully see you next week.